you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, hi, Susan. Welcome to the Roundtable. My name is Robert Bannon, and you're listening to us. Well, Susan's listening to me right now, but you're listening to us at home on Broadway World or the Broadway Podcast Network or on social media, or I don't know. I've been in a lot of bad places, Susan. Worse places than with you. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to be here with you.
Susan, I have so many questions.
Yeah, start. Hit me
You
up.
you have a documentary out called 40 Watts from Nowhere,
Yes,
which was based on a book that you wrote,
correct.
which is based on your life.
Correct.
But here's my question. I'm from New Jersey, so I don't know the radio station, pirate radio and punk rock radio station that you started in Los Angeles, I think in a closet next to your bathroom somewhere. In my question is, wait, you had a radio station, you started a radio station, and you were a reporter aside, like,
Okay, so this is your question. How did I do both?
you've done all of that, Susan?
Well, here's the thing. I was not a reporter when I started the radio station. I was an aspiring reporter. So I was at that stage in my life. I don't know if you've ever been at that point in your 20s where you're like, what am I doing? Like, what do I want to do? So I just knew that I loved music. I knew that I was working as a legal secretary and not particularly digging that. So I happened upon a way to run a radio station that I thought I was going to run a legitimate radio station at first. And I met with a lawyer and he sort of laughed me out of his office. But the lucky thing about that meeting is that he knew about this renegade pirate radio guru who just happened to be living in the Bay Area at the same time. And it was through him that I had that cockamamie idea to like buy a transmitter kit, build it, and start broadcasting from my bedroom. Yeah.
And literally, and this is not the time of podcasting and internet radio, where now everybody has a show and everybody is putting out something. You did this. How did you even learn how to do it? Like, did you read a book?
No, I didn't know what I was doing. Like so many things in my life, I've just sort of like groped my way through it and found people who knew what they were doing to help me through the sticky bits. And it's amazing how people will come out of the woodwork to help you because they also really love the idea. So that's really how I was able to do it. If somebody had just given me this kit, which they did, which came in a manila envelope that was picked up at this shabby little workshop in Berkeley, California in 1994, actually, handed me a soldering iron. There was like a schematic. So can you imagine? Like, I'm somebody who like types for a living, right? And goes out drinking with my friends and rides motorcycles on the weekend. You know what I mean? Like, so I had all these weird little gizmos that needed to somehow be assembled into this circuit board that got placed into this silver box that got connected to these cables. And, I had no idea, like, no, I would never have been able to do that on my own.
Well, what fascinates me, we're talking about the radio station, by the way, was called KBLT, which
Yes.
is really good to order at a diner. I don't know what the K means, but we could figure something. Ketchup? What do you put on this?
You're on the other side of the country, so you're all W's out there, right?
Right.
So on our side, we're K. And also the first station was also named after a sandwich. So the one up in San Francisco was peanut butter and jelly. But then I realized that when you say PBJ, nobody understands that, like so I thought BLT was better. So that's why I changed it to bacon, lettuce, and tomato.
Well, and you're right. We're all W. We're WNYC, right. And K in LA, West Coast Ks.
Yes.
So the KBLT, I love
Yeah.
a BLT.
Me
And
too.
I'll have a BLT with you anytime, Susan.
Come on out.
Okay, deal. So when you started this, how many hours did you put on the radio and how did you know anyone was listening?
Oh, so at first it was just me and my friends. This is up in San Francisco, 4 hours a night, like from 8 until midnight. And I had set up a voicemail box because I didn't want anybody to call directly into my house because I figured that would be traceable by the FCC. And when I had the station up in the Bay Area, I got a ton of phone calls. Like people were just finding it. When I started the station down in Los Angeles, it was just me because I didn't know anybody. I was down there to take a job. And I brought the radio station and did the radio station on the side at night. And I was DJing alone in this little closet for 2 hours every night for months until I met other people who could DJ. And it was the same setup where people would have to call in through a voicemail. I wouldn't have people call directly to the house. But eventually that station over the course of 3 years grew into 24 hours a day and with a waiting list of hundreds of people. So it grew.
You've moved me personally, and this is not about me, but when you asked me in my 20s, did I ever experience, I'm a teacher in real life. And then this during the pandemic was like, let's talk to artists, let's talk to actors, and I don't know, we did 300 plus interviews, 2 million streams on YouTube, Broadway podcast. It grew, like you can take your idea in my basement during COVID or in the 90s out in San Francisco and that's what I think moves me so much about your story is that you're not a radio personality. I don't host a talk show or know anything about how to put up a podcast or be on any of the platforms I'm on. But the one step led me to keep going. And it led you to a radio station with incredible artists with a following and now a documentary and a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But doesn't that just sort of prove the point? Like, if you have an idea, don't just sit on it, do it. Right?
It makes me so sad that there are people out there that are ready to, I don't know, start an Etsy shop or make a lemonade stand. I don't know. What do people do, Susan? Something, but they do it.
Yeah, that's what I think that should be the proper instinct because we're living in an era where everything is just so easy. Anything you could possibly want, you can order online, have it delivered to your door. Like you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, So it takes effort to actually do something creative and satisfying to you on a soul level, which obviously you've also discovered, right?
Yes, I think so. I keep learning it, and we keep going, and that's what we do. And then, did you get into trouble for this?
I did get into trouble, but not big trouble. And that's because I didn't put up a fight, which is
Is it illegal? What is the trouble?
The trouble is that I did not go and get a license. I just decided to operate outside of what the federal government requires for you to be able to broadcast on the FM band. I just set up a transmitter and antenna and found the frequency and just started broadcasting there. But I wasn't supposed to. So I did eventually get shut down. But I didn't lose anything but the equipment. Yeah.
And when you got shut down, did you just pack it in? That was the end?
Not really. We attempted to come back and we wanted to kind of set up at times when we thought the FCC wouldn't be around, like on holidays. Doesn't that make sense? Like, are the FCC agents working on Thanksgiving? Are they working on Christmas and New Year's? So we did that for a little bit. And then it just was like, why are we doing this? Because people don't want to just listen on a holiday. People wanted it. Like we were a 24-hour station. So people wanted it all the time. And
is it hard to get a license? How do you?
Yes, it is. It's very expensive. So back at the time that I started this station, it was $20 million. I can only imagine what they cost now.
Wait, what? It's $20 million to have a radio station?
Yeah, because you have to buy the license for an already existing station. If you happen by any chance to find a frequency that is not already taken, which is not possible in a major urban area like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New Jersey, where you live, then you would have to go through a process where all the research that you had done to prove that that was a viable frequency would get stolen by somebody who had the money and the wherewithal, who probably already had a bunch of other stations. So it's just, yeah.
Oh, well, now I'm mad. So now I'm upset. So now I'm not even going to listen to the radio. All these
Okay.
all these Clear Channel, iHeart radio pirates who take over for the people who are trying to put out good music that keep slamming the same 8 songs down our throat. We're done. We need
Yeah.
people like Susan.
Yeah, you just summed it up. That was the whole, raison d'etre, for KBLT.
So when you gave up the
Yeah.
radio, and I'm sure you were not making millions of dollars making this radio station, because did you have any sponsors, any commercials?
No, no. I mean, there was a whole movement around the country, right? There was a whole wild scene in Florida in particular where they were doing commercials, and a lot of them got busted because of that. I didn't want to get busted. What I wanted to do was like last as long as possible, flying under the radar of the FCC. So, imagine profiting off something illegal, which is what some stations that got busted were doing because they were running paid advertising. So we did not do that. And it was funded by me. And then because all the equipment was just constantly being broken, at some point I instituted a like $7 monthly fee, just to cover the costs of all the headphones that were broken and the CD players like breaking constantly, because this was all just like residential grade stuff. It wasn't like radio station grade stuff. It wasn't meant to just be constantly people pushing buttons and like putting their cassettes in and taking like just being rough on them machines. So things constantly broke.
I'm I'm so fascinated by this whole story. This is one of the most,
Why? Why is it so interesting to you?
because you just decided that you were going to start a radio station in your home and
Yes.
play music on a cassette or on a CD player at that time with a frequency from your house illegally, just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in like when you look at that with like 2025 eyes, it sounds insane. And I will tell you that on some level, it really was, but I would say that the more insane part from my perspective was that this was happening in my personal living space. And I had a different DJ coming in every 2 hours, 24 hours a day. That was not only insane, but it was also crazy making, like to the point where when the station got busted, I was almost relieved to not have to listen to music anymore. It was sort of like done this complete 360 where I wanted to hear all this music. And then it was like, I'm hearing too much music, So it was, yeah, it was a lot.
So when you talk about this is so good, you're my kind of crazy because I get you. I I do. I'd have told you 300 something interviews a year. People are like, what are you? I'm teaching 6th grade. How do you have time to, we make it work because we're
Exactly.
crazy
We
people.
are the same people.
I get it. Well, so then how did this lead you to being a journalist?
I wanted to be a journalist at the time that I was starting the radio station. And I was doing like little freelance stories here and there. I'd gone to school, like went to college for journalism, but I'd spent many years after that not wanting to make the sacrifices that at that time, and to some extent, you still need to do today in what I will call real journalism, going to like a small market, interacting with real people, telling their stories. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live in a big city. Well, you can't just like parachute into a big city and expect to work for a major daily newspaper, which is what the media was back then. It wasn't like influencers and TikTok and, all these different ways that you have to be a journalist now. So I was just starting to freelance here and there, and eventually it grew and grew, and you know
The
my
14 years at the LA Times, by the way, like that's not just you were writing in the penny saver, like you were.
well, weirdly, I started freelancing for the LA Times when I was running the radio station. And the same day that I got busted by the FCC, I was offered a full-time job at the LA Times. And that's when my like mainstream journalism career took off. But if you've seen the movie, and you probably noticed like how messed up my hair was, like constantly, like through that whole thing, and like how many different hairstyles I had, that's because I was also working for this magazine called Jane. I don't know if you've heard of it. This gonzo journalism magazine for women in the 90s, where you live the journalism, right? So at that time that the guy was filming all the stuff with the radio station, I was in the midst of reporting a story for Jane magazine, 4 hairstyles in 4 weeks. So I had like blonde hair, and then I had it dyed black and cut into a bob, and then I had it all cut off and it was like a red pixie cut, and then I had like cotton candy dreads, and then I also have those crazy blonde braids that are so embarrassing to look at now. I thought they were so cool in the 90s, but yeah, so a lot of gonzo journalism at the same time that I was doing the radio station.
Well, I just want people to know that you were not only the radio station in your closet in your house, lady. You are like awarded, lauded like journalist for major publications. So you have
I don't know how lauded I am, but I am.
I say lauded because
Okay,
the New York Times, I've never contributed to the New York Times except I bought it before, or I try to break through the paywall when I want to read an article on them. That's
Yeah.
my contribution. But so for you, when did the idea come for you to make a documentary about it? I heard that somebody found footage, and you've never directed a documentary before.
No, but I'm really lucky that I've my journalism career started in print, like writing, right? And then I did some radio, and then I currently work at Spectrum News, or New York One, which you probably know. And I was trained to do broadcast features, like shoot stuff, edit stuff, do sound. And if I hadn't actually gotten that training when I found out that this footage existed, I probably wouldn't have thought that I could make this movie. And the original idea was that how hard could it be just to edit all this together myself? No, 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 no. I needed a real editor who I hired, Amanda Laws, who's amazing. Cannot sing her praises enough. But yeah, I mean, I felt like I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for 30 years. Why not try a different form of storytelling? It's it's a lot. I will tell you that making a movie, a documentary, or a feature film, I'm sure, is a lot of work.
But you've done, and it's out, and it's a full-length film. It's 89 minutes and 30 seconds long.
Thank you for knowing the exact runtime. Yes, including credits, which are very long. We have 4.5 minutes of credits because we have 74 songs in the movie. I don't know if you noticed how music heavy it is, but that's a lot of fun.
As it should be. And you have some really, like, Tom Morello is one of the most amazing. I saw him live. He literally, I don't know, stomped on the guitar, ate it, let it on fire. His guitar, it looks like
his teeth.
His guitar looks like it has been through wars. And he's a real genius. And he speaks about, like, you have made an impression in the LA music scene and the West Coast music scene through your radio station. Like, people remember, and it means something to them.
Yeah. And I have to say that feels really good because I lost touch with so many of those people for literally decades before I decided to start making this movie. Just the warm, fuzzy feelings that people have about having been involved or having been a listener, it's a lost time. Like it's a time that's never going to come back. I mean, yeah.
So how can we support the film? How can we see the film? What's the plan for the film? Like, give us the whole scoop, Susan Carpenter.
Ooh, well, we've gotten into one film. Gotten into one film festival. It's gotten into Slamdance. We're premiering on February 22nd. You could support the film by getting a pass to Slamdance. And if you can't go there in person, then I think you could watch it virtually. I'm not sure like if they limit how many tickets there are or how many screenings or showings there are of certain films that are because I've never done this before. So there's that. We're trying to get into other film fests. I've applied to like 25. We're still in the process of waiting for a lot of these. Hopefully we get some sort of distribution deal, that would be another way to see it eventually. But right now, film festivals, hopefully Netflix. We'll see.
We'll see. And then we can read the book. I mean, you could get the book.
Yeah, I just, in the DIY spirit, because I decided to make this film and because the book that I wrote is out of print, I decided to reissue it as so I have reissued it as an ebook, as a print on demand, and as an audiobook. And I think that those are all live as of the last couple days, just in case anybody wanted to get the full story and not just what they see in the film.
Well, Susan, don't take this the wrong way, but did you release it as an ebook legally?
I appreciate that question. I did.
See?
Yeah.
See, she's reformed. She's a reformed illegal broadcaster.
Can't be a rebel forever. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see the journey, and I'm excited for people to definitely check out this film. It's so fascinating, and the story is so fascinating. And to think, I think of it as a time. It's like the days before big, while it's a time gone by for sure. And you were ahead of your game and ahead of the times, because you were out here doing independent radio and putting out up and coming artists and talking about things that no mainstream media would talk about back then, before that's become a thing, which is now such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a rebel. You're at the forefront of it all, and then you turned it around and classed it up and became a newspaper. You're inspiring. I love it.
Thank you so much. I feel like you should overcome your barrier. Like, if people put up barriers, don't think that they're a barrier. And also, one of my biggest pieces of advice for anybody is just ask. Everybody thinks that if they want to do something, people are going to say no. Well, first of all, who's who? You know what I mean? Who is it who's saying no? And even if they, just ask. A lot of times people will say yes. Like people like Tom Morello, perfect example. Can I ask you a couple questions for this movie? Yes.
See, I started this whole show, and it's just with the idea that nobody was going to come on, and people say yes. I get a lot of no's, and some people will say no, but you get a lot of yeses, and then it just grows.
Exactly. That's exactly how it goes. So I feel like obstacles are there just to be knocked down.
And you now work for someone, when people are watching New York One, or I don't know what the Los Angeles version of your channel is.
Spectrum News One.
Spectrum News One. Then Susan's got her hand in that, and that's a legal channel too. Legal, L with an L.
Thank you. Thank you for being that clear. I'm sure that my bosses appreciate that too.
Look, I don't know if you know about New York One.
Do you have a connection to New York One?
Well, Frank DeLella, who is on stage at New York One, who is the Broadway reporter. I'm just saying, Susan, if Frank, he's my friend and I like him, but if he so happens to get another job, I'm going to put you down as a reference to take over his show.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
I am. And so I'm just letting you know in advance. Everybody, it's a stupid show. Thank you so much. 40 Watts from Nowhere is coming and about, and look for the book, look for the re-release. Can we follow you, Susan? Are you somewhere on social media that we could stay up to date?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at 40 Watts from Nowhere KBLT, and on Facebook at KBLT Silver Lake.
Perfect. Amazing. We'll put the links, and all the information will be below us, so you can follow, say hey, and see where you can see the film and where the film's going to be. Thank you so much for spending time with us. It was really fun. You're a joy. Congratulations.
Very fun. Thank you.